keep in mind, this is patient zero, right? You trace it all the way back. Where did the 2.2 million come from? This guy. It came from this guy. It's that simple. And people go, well, no, there must be something more to it, right? Because experts wouldn't get it that wrong, would they? Right. The guy killed all the sheep. You guys remember, well, a lot of you probably have forgotten, but don't you? I remember when the death toll was going to be 2.2 million.
Way back.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That was
a couple
way
months
back
ago.
what started all of this, right? It was going to be 2.2 million deaths in the United States, 500,000 in the UK. Yeah. Those were the numbers that we heard, and we had to act. Now, just in case you think I'm making it up.
The British, rocked by a startling UK report warning of a catastrophic epidemic. The same research suggesting without any action, 2.2 million Americans could die.
If the U.S. doesn't take these steps, 2.2 million Americans could die.
Peter Navarro, who you saw on Our Air yesterday, he wrote 2 memos trying to warn the White House that coronavirus could cost the country trillions of dollars and kill up to 2 million Americans.
In this fight against a pandemic that the White House has been warned could kill over 2 million Americans, more Americans than died in every war since 1776.
Without the strict social distancing, that number could be as high as 2 million Americans.
So just to be clear, the virus is not, but that 2.2 million number was a hoax. Yeah. The number was a hoax. I'll get into there. 2.2 million, Bigfoot, Kavanaugh rape, balloon boy.
Yeah. Cavities.
I want to be clear. Where did this number come from? Because this was ubiquitous, right? This is the number that everybody believed, and we had to act, and we had to take drastic measures because 2.2 million. Right. And we know now the numbers. It couldn't be possible in the United States if you actually look at our demographics and you look at the media. It's not a possibility here in the United States. It could have never been a possibility. But let me introduce you to the founder of the feast, the man who came up with this number, Dr. Neil Ferguson from the Imperial College in London. He is the one, again, responsible for the 2.2 million Americans will die number. Here he is advocating, China-style lockdowns.
I will now speak with Professor Neil Ferguson, Director of the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute for Disease and Emergency Analytics, or JID for short.
Beyond those smaller outbreaks, one has to adopt the sort of community measures which have been adopted, particularly in places like Wuhan and China, where you try to reduce contacts between people in the community.
So why is this important? Well, it's important because it's the number that we all use, but there's a real pattern here. Again, while we're talking about I keep forgetting his name.
Dr. Neil.
I know Dr. Neil. You know what, from now on, I'm going to call him Neil for short.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil.
This guy has a pattern. So we'll start with the coronavirus, but this is important because everyone has used him, they've cited him, and I think this is important to keep in mind when we talk about the experts, because everyone says this, whether you're talking about climate change, even if you're just saying, hey, listen, I believe the Earth is warming, I believe that human beings are contributing to it. Right. I don't believe that the Paris Agreement will necessarily change it. Right. The same case where they say, well, right now, if you don't believe that 2.2 million Americans will die, well, then why are you questioning the experts? Well, let me present a case as to why sometimes you should question the experts and do your own due diligence. So let's look at the coronavirus numbers. He came up with a 2.2 million number, and he refused to release the workings of the study. The model is based on a 13-year-old code that is completely undocumented. Okay? I want to be clear about that. And you know what else is? This is like the 77 cents on the dollar with Barack Obama when he was out there saying, women make 77, and you're going, does he not have access to even Bing, even if he doesn't have Google? If he's in communist China.
This could help this guy.
Web crawler, for crying out loud.
GeoCities.
You wonder, hold on a second, why does nobody in power have the ability to question this number? Because this is the source of the number, and no one goes like, hey, what's your reference there? Doesn't that matter if we're going to shut down economies? And you know that he has no problem with it. Let's go back through all of his other predictions, okay? Considered an authority, an expert on the issue. In 2009, this man, Dr. Neil, he estimated that swine flu had a 0.4% death rate. Based on his advice, government in the UK, they estimated 65,000 dead. What actually happened, 457 deaths. The death rate was 0.026%.
So that's a little bit off.
Bird flu was another one he made a prediction. You guys know.
Love it.
Actually, matter of fact, I could say that for all of these.
That's true.
It doesn't.
This whole segment, credit where credit's due.
It's true.
Okay,
You guys
you
are
got to
brilliant.
at least call us consistent.
The capital of virus.
So the bird flu, again, Dr. Neil, what did he say? He said in 2005, I believe, right, Neil?
Yes.
Is that what he said? In 2005? Yeah, 2005. He predicted 200 million bird flu deaths.
Wow. People, not birds. People.
Right,
People,
yes, people.
birds.
Birds, who gives a
From bird flu.
Sorry, from bird flu. I don't want to get fact-checked by who.
I was screwing with him.
PETA, they're coming for you.
What happened to the good where who they just had a few upturned noses and some wire left from the Grinch? Now they're dominating world economies.
Oh my gosh.
Screw them. So the reality is, there were only a few hundred in a decade, right? Bird flu deaths, less than 100 per year on average. And keep in mind, by the way, because right now they say, well, all of that we didn't hit 2.2 million, we didn't hit 100 to 240,000 because of the lockdowns. No, actually, the numbers were revised long before the social distancing could have taken effect. And then again, you can look here at the bird flu. This was done without massive lockdowns. You were alive during the bird flu. Do you remember this kind of a crash to the economy? Do you remember everyone being forced to stay in place at home? Another prediction, it was the, what was it called, like the foot and mouth disease?
Yeah.
I don't know the virological nomenclature, epidemiological. I just remember foot and mouth disease, which this guy does a lot.
The hoof and mouth.
So it was, he had a model, right, in his team at the Imperial College. They suggested millions of farm animals, okay, would have to be killed to prevent the spread, even if at the point there was no evidence of infection, okay? Now, what happened? Animal disease experts, keep in mind, experts. So an expert said, hey, this is going to spread. We have to kill all these animals. And other experts said, oh, okay, let's massacre. They said it looked like they had a culling. It was necessary, right? Because the model from Ferguson, well, it turns out that actually it was not necessary. They didn't take into account the species composition of farms. This is something that I read from some kind of sort of an epidemiological study. I don't really know what it means. But I do know that it was too late. Millions of animals had been killed. It cost the British economy $10 billion. Well, actually 12.5 billion American dollars. This is all important because even if you look at this right here where they culled these animals, right, it cost $12.5 billion. It shows you that Dr. Neal, whose head comes to a point, is not, he's not scared.
Wait.
He has no problem with destroying an economy with panic. He's done it in the past. Ferguson made another prediction on mad cow disease. He said 150,000 deaths from mad cow, right? And this was based on the theory back then that British sheep, if you remember this, British sheep might be capable of spreading it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, to date, there have been fewer than 200 deaths from mad cow disease in the United Kingdom, none of which have been transmitted from sheep.
I think this guy just hates animals. What's his deal? Like, got a grudge.
There's a disease. Kill all the animals.
Kill all the animals.
He got nipped by his pet cat once. He's like, I'll show you. Lay low for 42 years. Get myself into the Imperial College, so it's a trump card.
And then kill them all.
And I'll show your descendants. By the way, you guys, we don't have enough time to run all the clips. You can go watch in the news. Yeah. They're talking about this nonstop on CNN and BBC right now. They still are citing this guy. Keep in mind, this is patient zero, right? You trace it all the way back. Where did the 2.2 million come from? This guy. It came from this guy. Just like the 77 cents in the dollar came from one study. All that comes from is taking the average salary of men across all different lines of work, regardless of hours worked, regardless of education, compared it with women. Yeah. It's that simple. And people go, well, no, there must be something more to it, right? Because experts wouldn't get it that wrong, would they? Right. The guy killed all the sheep. This is something that I think is important here. There is, listen, we had, and I want to be clear, I think we all, well, actually I think some of you guys here wanted to pull me back a little bit initially. I was like, I think this is crap. All the way. You did too. And actually, you thought it was partially crap, but you were like, let's play it safe because we don't want to get fact-checked on air.
Yeah. Well, and I will say that you were more, looking back, you were more correct about how overblown it was going to be. I was like, oh, we should question some stuff, but I was definitely more drinking the Kool-Aid, and you were like, nah, I don't know. We'll check back in 60 days.
No, you were drinking my whiskey straight from the bottle.
Well,
and even that
right
had
before the shows.
I was like, what? You're like, Jameson kills it. I'm like, I don't think that it does.
Hey, I asked Trump. It
does, yes.
Listen,
but only if you drink a lot.
I don't drink, but if you're going to, Trump vodka, okay, that will kill it.
It's a fine liquid.
If we could get it into your lungs.
The best
I'm saying waterboard Bill with Trump vodka.
Yes. Even a Trump
we had these, I think that when in the absence of data, it was prudent to take some precautionary measures. Sure.
Yes.
When we didn't know. Now, keep in mind, the absence of data, that's where people were reaching for numbers, and they said, whoa, 2.2 million. Yeah. And I still think we should have quarantined the sick. You can go back, and I said, why don't we just quarantine old people and sick people? Well, now people are saying that. Back then, people were saying, you monster. I'm like, listen, go take any time throughout history. Go back through, I don't know, times around Christ. Yeah. There are no pits of non-lepers. You reserve all the lepers.
Or lepers.
You don't throw in the non-lepers. You don't keep them separate and let the lepers run free.
Very true.
This is what you don't quarantine the
Livers
sick.
can't
But
run.
at one point we had hypothetical numbers. We needed to work with these models. And as a matter of fact, actually, if you go to the website, we didn't work with those models. There were plenty of other epidemiologists who were experts who were just considered contrarians who said this really doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. And we tried to cover that. We just have to be careful because big tech gets together and they will remove videos. They removed the videos from these. What were the names of those doctors from Los Angeles? Was it Los Angeles County? 5 million plays. 5 million plays. They had several thousand people who they've actually tested for antibodies, and they were seeing the death rate is 0.1%.
Yep.
Got removed from Facebook because it violated guidelines.
Oh, it's fake according to
So
them.
we've had to try and be consistent. We've had to try and be authentic, but also we've had to try and navigate Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, who, by the way, take their marching orders directly from the World Health Organization, who said, by the way, not that long ago, that it couldn't be transmitted through human-to-human contact. So when you're using them as your Washington Post or Snopes or Southern Poverty Law Center fact checkers, at what point do you say, you know what, maybe the contrarians are right, because it doesn't take a scientist or an expert to have studied any virus ever and said, you know what, I think that if you start fondling someone who has it, that's a bad idea. It's a slippery slope. It's a sweaty, clammy slope. I think what we're seeing right now is we are seeing the theoretical, unfortunately, clashing with the real world. Okay, so it was theoretical. We could lose 2.2 million lives. We could, now we're going to revise it. We could lose 100,000 to 240,000 lives. Right? We could have whatever, how many tens of millions of people are infected, though that's actually something that seems like it's probably accurate. Though they don't want to report on that now because then all of a sudden that lowers the death rate. So we could have those, but now we have real world data where we've tested people for antibodies. What do we have? We have New York City, Los Angeles County, Santa Clara County. We have Miami-Dade County. We have Chelsea in Massachusetts. We have a few more. I don't have them off the top of my head. Every single one has revised their death estimates, their mortality rate, to 0.5 to 0.1%, and that's including the 95% of whom are people over the age of 80 and have pre-existing conditions. Every single one that has run these studies. So you can even say maybe they're getting too many false positives with these antibody tests. Okay, let's double it. The people who said this is more comparable to the flu were so much closer than the experts who said 4 to 7%. It's laughable. And we have real-world data now in that we see how many people have died. We see how communicable it is. We don't know the extent of that, but by the way, all testing shows us between 4 to 6%, 4 to, I think, 6.5%, depending on the county. That means that far more people have been affected. We have real-world data now. That, what is it, 22 million? Are we at 24 million jobless claims at this point?
I thought it was a little higher than that.
It could be significantly higher than that. We have real-world data now that 1 in 5 suicides is linked to unemployment. We have real-world data now that we've crippled economies. We have real-world data now that 36% of retail industries might not reopen after this economy. And that is clashing with the theoretical, which we know is verifiably false, but unfortunately, big tech and their overlords want to silence doctors right now who are out there espousing the real-world observable data at this point. So at one time, sure, in the absence of data, I think it was prudent to take some precautionary measures. But at this point, in the face of overwhelming data, it's a conspiracy and it's a hoax. You don't have to rely exclusively on experts. Sure, you should have wise counsel. Everybody should have wise counsel. But you should also do your own due diligence. And certainly, when faced with theoretical data or real-world observable data, commonly referred to as actual science, go with the latter. Hey, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe. If you're already subscribed, hit the notification bell, hit all notifications. We have new videos that go up every day, as well as, of course, an entire show not available on YouTube at louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub. If you did not like this show, please comment below and address your comments to Gerald. Be sure to do that. Also, his Twitter